when I was teaching on the first day of school, little pre-K kids who were 4, at the time they were 3. They changed it, you had to be 4 to get into pre-K. But back in the beginning of the program, these kids were coming to school when they were 3. And I believe that was way too young. I didn't blame them for crying. They were scared to death. And the kindergarten teachers sometimes, if they were scheduled to have art at 9 o'clock in the morning, that means the kid just arrives in kindergarten, meets the teacher and the assistant, and is in this brand new environment. And the first thing, as soon as they learn, who their teacher is, they're supposed to go to art. I would have thought that the teacher would keep them the first day in the classroom so they can get accustomed to it. But no, they always needed their breaks. So they had to send the kids to me at 9 o'clock. A lot of these kids were crying already.
Okay.
And so in order for them to not be as scared,
Can you get the dog to stop barking?
I would go, Maisie, stop barking. Maisie, come here. Come, Maisie, come.
No. Okay. Go ahead.
I would go to the kindergarten room and say, "Hi, girls and boys. My name is Miss Colin DuBose, and I'm going to be your art teacher pretty soon. In a little while, you're going to come to my classroom, which is down on the other side of the library." So they would see me, and they wouldn't be like just thrust into another classroom with another teacher. So, sometimes I would say, "Oh, Susie, you look just like Stephen. Is Stephen your brother?" And she'd say, "Yes." And, I had taught a lot of the parents, so I knew some parents too. And so I did this a lot, like, "Oh, this must be a little Harper child," or, I did that just to get them familiar with me. So the kids are all lined up and they're passing in front of me, and I see this kid that just looks like one of the guys I had taught years ago, and I pointed to him, and I look up and the assistant goes, No, don't, no. And they passed by me, and I said to her, "What's the problem?" She said, "I knew what you were going to say." I said, "Yeah, he must be Keith Grove's son." She said, "Right. Keith Grove is his son. But really, this boy's name is Matt Guard, because he thinks his father is Matt Guard." Oh, thank you. Is this?
It's from Joanna.
Thank you, Joanna. I love it. It's a Coca-Cola. And I said, "Oh," and she goes, "And walking right behind you was the principal. That was her brother."
Whose brother?
Or that was her cousin, Matt Guard.
You're saying, oh, okay.
The principal, it was her cousin because her maiden name was Guard. So her name was Jane Guard Fox. Anyway, I was like, "Oh my gosh," because I didn't want you to say it because everybody thinks he's Keith Grove's kid, and he is, but we don't talk about it because Matthew Guard is his father. I was like, "Oh my God, Franny, thank you for..."
Grove and Guard too. It's just so close.
Yeah, yeah.
You could accidentally just slip out of your...
You could. And they're both Friendsville names. And I said, "Thank you for saving me." She goes, "Yeah. Oh, it would have been ugly. It would have been really ugly." And so they went to my classroom and I taught them, and I knew he was Grove. Or he was Guard.
She saved you.
He was Guard. She saved me. So years later, so I stopped doing that. Even at Grantsville, I stopped doing that. Because you never know. When you say, "Well, you look like," that could be the kid. Oh my God, it's a very dangerous thing.
Small town?
Small town, yeah.
Incest?
So I stopped doing it. And then years later, pre-K kids, that teacher did what I thought was the best thing. she let them go out and play on the playground during my time. So I went down to her classroom at 9:00 when the kids were supposed to be in art, and she had them outside, which was so smart. So I was pointing to kids, and she was standing there, the teacher was standing there, and her assistant was standing there, and I said, I used to point at kids and go, "Oh, you look like," but I got myself in trouble because I pointed to Matthew Guard, and I said he looked like Keith Grove, when in fact Keith Grove was his father. And I said, "Oh God," I put my foot in my mouth, and I don't do that anymore. I learned my lesson. And her assistant turned and abruptly walked into the school. And I said to Connie, the teacher, I said, "What's wrong with her?" She said, "That was her brother you were talking about." Keith Grove was her brother. I'm like, oh God. Oh my God. So again, 5 years later, I put my foot in my mouth, bragging about how I don't do that anymore. And I did it in a royal way. The worst. It was the worst.
Groves and guards.
It gives me a stomach ache to think of it now.
I think it's bygones.
Yeah, it's bygones, yeah.
Maybe her